Shout out, hey, listen, man, we have my main man, Evan Korn, in the building, man. Let's give him a round of applause.
Appreciate that, Coach.
Give Evan a round of applause, man.
Thank you, Coach.
Evan, what's going on, fam? I know it's kind of loud back there. What you got going on?
Just fight week stuff, man. Fighter meetings and, fighters doing their live photos. Just, busy fight week stuff. So we're all excited for the show tomorrow at MSG.
Okay, so for all the people who may not know who you is, please let them know who you are.
Yeah, director of communications for Top Rank. So a lot of the PR stuff for Top Rank and other assorted tasks as needed. All
right, so you got a pretty good fight card. We was in Vegas. Vegas was nice. You got a pretty good fight card going down tomorrow. What say you about that? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I think it's great. Shakur Foster is a guy that, as he mentioned in a lot of interviews and yesterday, wasn't a guy that was handed things as a pro. Wasn't, he was a top amateur, but had some fits and starts to his career, had a couple losses, spent some time in prison, and then came out with renewed dedication and vigor and turned his career around in spectacular fashion. It goes to show you when you have a good team, good trainer, Bobby Bennon, manager Keith Mills, who stood by him, turned his life around, turned his career around, won a world title last year, salvaged it with one of the greatest come-from-behind 12th round knockouts in boxing history in a title fight, which if you go by the numbers, that's true. And Top Rank, we signed him late last year, and now he's headlining on ESPN on a platform that we feel like he deserves. And he's a guy that he's in tough with Abraham Nova, a guy that we've had for 4 years. So it's not a walkover by any means, but Oshaki's finally getting that main event platform we feel like he deserves.
There's a lot of people in this chat. They love Shakur Foster. I like the guy a lot, to be fair. He was a champion. He is a champion, but he went into the heart of Mexico, and he fought I forgot the brother he fought.
Rocky Hernandez.
It
was down 11-0 on one of the cards. One of those.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think that guy's ever judging again. Hopefully he doesn't. But down 11-0 on one card. I think down 3 or 5 points on one of the other cards. So he needed a knockout in the 12th round, and he did it against a very, very good fighter in Rocky Hernandez. So when you talk about adversity and overcoming adversity and doing whatever was needed to hold on to your title, that's what Shakur Foster did. And he did it in Mexico against a Mexican fighter in hostile territory. The 11th round was the round of the year last year. Both guys were hurt. It was rock'em sock'em robots. So when you have a guy come through something like that to retain his title, obviously to get to where he got to win a title, he had to have had a ton of character. But to retain his title in that fashion shows everything you need to know about Shakur Foster.
So you head of communications over at Top Rank?
Correct.
All right, so let everybody know what is your job description as it relates to? Can you break that down for those who don't know what that title means?
I mean, it's day to day. It changes, but head of PR, so pitching stories, working directly with the fighters, setting up interviews, along with my colleague Gabe Rivas. Just pretty much heading up PR and identifying good stories, pitching those stories to outlets, and working to expose the fighters to not just boxing media, but to the wider media as well. Guys like Shakur Foster, for example, he's made his home in Houston. He's from the Houston area, so you want to pitch him with the Houston media. A lot of these guys, Keshawn Davis in Norfolk, Jared Anderson in Toledo. We're big believers that hometowns are fertile grounds for not just to help grow these guys as stars, but you want to bring fights to places like that. So you saw Jared Anderson pretty much sold out Toledo his first time.
Right.
We identified Toledo as a market for many years. We saw, I think boxing fans saw the success that Robert Easter had in Toledo. We've had success in similar markets like Fresno with Jose Ramirez, Omaha with Terence Crawford. A lot of cities that not necessarily the big cities, I call them AAA cities. So cities that have minor league baseball teams, right? So mid-sized cities that have a real sense of community, like in Omaha, like a Fresno, are real great markets for boxing. And then obviously you have New York City, LA, Houston, Dallas. Shakur Stevens is another example. Like Newark, New Jersey, it's 20 minutes from New York City, but it's its own, it's its own city, right? And Shakur is one of the best hometown draws in boxing. Because he, just like Jared with Toledo, he wears Newark on his trunks. He wears he always shouts out Newark. And so when you have a hometown that identifies with the fighter, and when the fighter identifies and shows love to their hometown, we've found that that's a great recipe for success.
So I'm glad you mentioned Shakur Stevenson. His last performance, he didn't look well. A lot of people said that he was running in his last fight. And now
you could say he didn't look good, but neither did Edwin De Los Santos, right?
Yeah, Edwin De Los Santos, yeah. I'm going to get to that. But as it relates to Shakur Stevenson, do you feel that his last performance did it really hurt him? We're hearing that he's going to be a free agent. He let that be known. He's going to be a free agent. This and that. What's going on with the Shakur Stevenson situation?
Listen, we'll see what happens with Shakur as it relates to that going forward. But what I will say is, I think a lot of times boxing fans and media, we're prisoners of the moment. And if you look at I think Shakur is a future Hall of Famer, future pound for pound #1 guy. If you look at every fighter in the Hall of Fame, every major star, they've had, nobody bats 1,000, even undefeated fighters, right? So that fight wasn't a scintillating fight by any means. Nobody would say it is, or say it was, but it takes two to tango, and it was what it was. But you look at every fighter, they have a fight that's not entertaining. They're flat. So I think Shakur's taking a lot of undue stick for that performance, and the future will bear out the fighter that he is and that he's shown in the past. Whether it's against Oscar Valdez or Joet Gonzalez. So it just wasn't a good performance. It just wasn't a good fight, and it happens.
What you do PR? You do PR, Evan. What advice can you give a lot of these fighters? As it relates to building their own brand. Like, we know the promotional company's job is to promote the fight or whatever, but a lot of these fighters, because of the day and age that we're living in with social media and stuff, some of these guys seem like they don't like giving interviews. When they do get in front of the camera, they can't really, articulate themselves to the fullest of their abilities or whatever. What advice do Top Rank give these fighters? Hey, look, you got to get yourself out there. You really got to do. Do you encourage that?
Well, nowadays it's a kind of a 360-degree approach. Social media #1. Not only be active on social media, but our social team we have a master class we offer every fighter. We have the most robust and most successful social team in boxing, and they offer lessons to every single fighter that we sign or that's on our roster on how on how to maximize, not just posting often, but how to post, what to post, how often to post. Things like that to build their brand. Some fighters don't like doing interviews. Some fighters have compelling stories, but aren't comfortable sharing that story. And sometimes it takes fighters a little time to get out of their shell and to feel comfortable telling those stories. So, it's about identifying those stories and just helping them along. Some fighters, like Keshawn Davis. It's just a natural, right? Some fighters.
Yeah, we saw that fight.
Some fighters, I think as you saw in Terrence's last fight, Terence did a great job with the media. You grow into it. Shakur's gotten a lot better. He's always was good, but he's a real compelling young man and has shown that in recent fights and promotions. So, everybody operates at their own speed, and it's about working with the fighters to help build a brand. But every fighter's different. You can't, it's one of the things I learned is you can't, it's not one size fits all. And the way you deal with Terence Crawford or Shakur Stevenson or Richard Torres or Keshawn, it's all different. And that's part of getting to know them and knowing their story.
I'm going to get the super chat out of the way. This brother right here, New Country, said, Evan, when Bob retires, who takes his place?
Well, who said he's retiring? He's 92 and hasn't retired yet. So what makes you think he's retiring? As for the answer to that question, that is way above my pay grade, so I'm not answering that.
Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo had a fight last week. A lot of people, felt that Jermaine Ortiz was running, that he didn't want to engage. Teo says a lot of things after the fight. I didn't even hear his entire speech, to be honest with you. But what is the disconnect between Teofimo launching his career to the next level from a pay grade standpoint? Because he's made gripes in the public that, hey, he feel like he's not getting paid the way he should be getting paid. But at the same time, he's not selling the way Gervonta Tank Davis is selling, or some of these other fighters may be selling. What say you about that?
Well, listen, I think everybody wants to get paid more. I love when people say this fighter wants to get paid. You want to get paid more. Everybody in their job wants to get paid more. So whether it's us or another promotional company, it's not a unique phenomena that a fighter wants to get paid more. Everybody wants to get paid more, right? So I don't really pay too much mind into that. That's just part of our business and part of any business, right? So, and you say, how to get to the next level. You keep fighting and you keep winning. And Teofimo's got a compelling story. You keep sharing that story. Obviously, Gervonta Davis is one of the biggest stars in boxing. So it's not about comparing. So it's not fair to compare X to Y or Y to Z or Teofimo to Gervonta or Devin to Shakur or whoever. Every fighter is different, and it's about how each fighter maximizes their own brand. So I don't really like the comparison game. I think who's the face of boxing? I mean, it's Canelo, but who cares? Canelo's a big star. Gervonta's a big star. Shakur's a big star. A lot of big stars. Tyson Fury's a big star. Anthony Joshua's a big star. I don't really love the comparison, right?
So, I'm glad you mentioned Canelo. We're talking about Canelo right now. There's a lot of information out there, news out there from different media outlets about who Canelo is fighting next. What I noticed is when it comes to Top Rank, I've never seen you guys, when Canelo became a free agent and people were trying to figure out where he was going to sign next, I never seen Top Rank break the bank or even reach out to try to sign Canelo. Why is that?
Again, that's you're asking. That's a question about my pay grade. I'm not the one to ask why or how far things. That's not my domain. But when people say they didn't open the bank in 2019, I remember February 2019. If you remember, everybody was saying that the Tyson Fury Deontay Wilder rematch was imminent, right?
Right.
That because PBC promoted the first fight, and everybody was saying PBC Showtime is about to announce it, right? And it was Monday in mid-February, I believe, because it was the Monday after a Rob Brandt fight in Minnesota, that nobody knew about this. Nobody broke it. And Top Rank and ESPN signed Tyson Fury to one of the biggest free agent deals in boxing history. So, it's about what deals can you get done. And, that's an example of breaking the bank. And that was at a time when ESPN Plus was in its beginning stages, about a year after it launched. And Tyson's first two fights against Schwartz and Wallen were on ESPN Plus, and two very big drivers for subscriptions at the time. At a time when boxing streaming was in its infancy. DAZN had launched the fall before, I believe. ESPN Plus had launched the April 2018. So it's but the Canelo question I can't answer, but we have broken the bank for guys. Fury being a primary example.
How many, I don't know if you can answer this question, but how many Hall of Famers have Top Rank produced? Because Top Rank has put on some hell of a fights, them Don King Promotions back in the day.
I mean, that Bob is promoted?
Right.
I mean, several dozen, that spent a majority of their prime or a good portion of their career with, I mean, Mayweather, Pacquiao, De La Hoya, Foreman, Ali,
Tony,
Monzon, Duran, the four Kings.
Yeah.
A lot of guys that will be Hall of Famers. Tim Bradley, for example, Juan Manuel Marquez, Eric Morales. I mean, list goes on and on. So, I mean, if you look at, since Bob had been promoting 56 years, you look at the biggest megastars, especially in America. Top Rank has promoted most of them at some point of their career. Julio Cesar Chavez at the end of his career. Guys like Floyd at the first 3/4 of his career,
35
first 70% of Floyd's career.
Yeah.
Pacquiao during the entire rise and apex of his career. So, and it's maybe at different points of their respective careers, but most of them, yeah.
It amazes me what Top Rank has been able to do as it relates to always signing the young fighters. You have Oshaki Foster. I think he's like 31, 32, so up in there.
Yeah, 31, I think, yeah.
You have Abdullah Mason. I love this kid, Abdullah Mason.
I was telling you all from the pro debut.
Yeah.
I know you were on the train early, but it took a lot of people time to catch on.
Right.
I mean, he was everybody, the matchmakers and Carl Moretti from day one. It was we thought this kid was special. He's I recommend people who watch his amateur fight. I think it's on YouTube against a guy named Joel Iriarte. Spectacular. And Abdullah was blue chip from day one.
Who are the matchmakers at Top Rank? I know Carl Moretti.
Well, Carl Moretti's a VP of boxing ops, and Brad Goodman and Bruce Trampler are the matchmakers and 2 Hall of Famers. So doesn't get it's pretty good. If you're a young fighter, it's a pretty good system to be developed in.
Right. So my thing is, what I notice is, I would love to interview one of these matchmakers, because I want to know, what is the matchmaking process? What's the thought process that the matchmaker is going through when he makes a decision? Hey, Keshawn is going to fight this guy next. Abdullah Mason is going to fight this guy next. Like, what is it that the matchmaker looks for in order to determine who's going to fight who and when they're going to fight?
Well, I'd let Brad and Bruce better answer that question. But I mean, I think I've seen interviews with Brad. It's showing these guys different styles. And not pushing them too fast, not pushing them too slow. It's a balance. It's an art, what they do. And so I'll let them answer that more thoroughly, because Brad's produced or 60 world champions or so from day one to world champion. So that's excuse me. So that's a question better handled for him. But it's every fighter is different, and it's a delicate balance.
Okay, yeah. You know what? I would definitely love to get them on the show. You think they'll be able to come on the show? Bruce
says, I'd let him answer that. But with De La Hoya coming up, how Bruce, was one of the primary matchmaker at the time when Oscar was coming up, and how he matched him. It's interesting. Some fighters, there's some special talents that maybe it's not, it's easier to match, but there's some fighters that need a little more time and need a little more seasoning. But that's better asked of them for sure.
Yeah, I got to get them on the show, man. I definitely, at least one of the matchmakers on the
sure,
show, because I would love to ask
him
that question.
I'll put you in the right direction.
All right, good, man, because, on this channel, we talk about ducking and cherry picking. And so we feel that a lot of fighters is ducking. We talking about Canelo. They say he's ducking, and he's ducking the Mexican monster, David Benavidez, and pick who he wants to pick. But Floyd Mayweather did say that when you're in that position, you should be able to pick and choose who you want to fight, especially if you earned that right. As of late, the Oshaki Foster, you got him coming up Friday. Oshaki, man, to me, it's hard for me not to be a fan of this guy. This guy got it the hard way. He's getting it out of the mud. What was the decision process that went into, hey, we want to sign this guy next, Oshaki Foster? How did he get signed?
Listen, I think any promotional company, not just Top Rank's, looking for elite talent. When elite talent becomes available, Oshaki Foster was an elite talent. He was elite talent that became available, as a world champion. He fit. We have a lot, and also we have a lot of up and comers and veterans in the 130-pound weight class. So it's a division that Top Rank has a lot of fighters in. So it just made it from pretty much every box you check. And also, from my perspective, I always say, like, the marketability metric, right? Like, how marketable is somebody and what's their ability? Oshaki Foster, I believe, is both marketable and has tremendous ability. There's a lot of fighters that, I'm not going to give you specific names, but there's a lot of fighters that are very, very, very marketable. Talent-wise, their talent level might be a little less, but you can work with them because they have potential mass appeal. And there's a lot of fighters that are, extremely talented, but it's tougher to market. And so a guy like Oshaki Foster is both very talented, already a world champion, and I believe very marketable. So he kind of checks both boxes.
I don't know if you qualify to answer this question, but this brother right here wanted to know, what is the biggest concerns on the promotion side of boxing in 2024?
I mean, from a general point of view, it's not concerns, but, it's you want to put on a good product for the fans and for your media partners that are paying money, to put on the fights. That's, maybe I wouldn't call it a concern, but that's always the objective. Fights that the fans want to see, fights that you feel like the network wants, and you go from there. I think people think you're going to say, oh, competition. Well, there's always been competition in boxing, right? There's always, back in the 90s, Bob Top Rank were going tooth and nail with Don King. And throughout the years, there's been countless upstart promotional companies that have come and gone that, that might change the pay scale in boxing or infuse with a lot of money and changes how the business operates. But that's not a concern now. That's been going on for decades. So, the main objective is putting on good fights that the fans want to see, and you go from there.
Do you think that Don King and Bob Arum made each other great promoters? Because, like you say, because of the competition factor, and Don King was, extravagant as he is, putting on big fights, Bob Arum putting on big fights, and then they put on some great fights together. De La Hoya and
Trinidad,
Trinidad. Just a whole bunch of fights they put together in the past. What do you think that they made each other great, so to speak?
I mean, I know Bob has spoken about this a lot, and it's, I think, in any business or any walk of life, competition makes you better. If you're just operating as the sole ruler, if you have 100% of the market share, right, you can become complacent. But when you have somebody like a Don King, who's a master self-promoter, was incredible at what he did in his day, it can't help but make you better. And I'm sure if you gave Don King truth serum, he would say the same thing about Bob. But as Bob has always said, when the rubber met the road and it was time to make the big fights, like Leonard Duran won, De La Hoya Trinidad, a bunch more. We even did in 2018, we did Jose Ramirez, Amir Imam, Miguel Cotto, Ricardo Mayorga. I think Floyd Mayweather, Zab Judah, I believe, was a Don and Bob promotion. When it came time to make big fights, they, as Bob said, before, green is the most important color. If the fighters can make big money, if the businesses can make big money, they would sit down and they'd make the fight. So that was whatever conflicts they had could be hashed out when it made sense business-wise.
So how has streaming affected boxing today from a financial standpoint?
Coach, you've been a boxing fan for a while. And when I started watching boxing, you watch an HBO broadcast back in the day, right?
Right.
It was 2 fights, usually 2, 3 fights, maybe even 1 sometimes. And you didn't see the international fight. You didn't see those undercard fights, right? They would be on the international broadcast. But that was pre-internet, pre-streaming, so you couldn't watch them. Maybe you'd get highlights in between fights on HBO. Nowadays, you can watch these fighters really develop in front of your eyes, right? So, and I think one of the great things about Top Rank and our distribution deal with ESPN is, and ESPN Plus, primarily for these undercard fights, is every single Abdullah Mason fight has been shown live, right? 30 years ago, that wouldn't be the case. 30 years ago, a guy like Abdullah Mason might be like this. You read about him in the pages of Ring Magazine, or he's like this underground, and this guy that you have to really sort of like be in the know. Now, because of social media and because every fight's live, you can watch him. You can watch his whole career. Emiliano Vargas, you can watch his whole career develop in front of your eyes. And I think that's one of the benefits of streaming. And a perfect example, I think before the streaming era, Asian fighters were criminally underrated because they were not shown anywhere. But one of the big reasons the monster has caught on in America in a way, like he has, his fights are on ESPN Plus. It's become like this rite of passage. These boxing fans are getting up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning to watch Inoue fights 2-3 times a year on ESPN Plus. And he, in my opinion, the best pound for pound fighter in the world. And thankfully, the American public, through social media, through ESPN Plus, has a front row seat to what I think, when it's all said and done, one of the greatest fighters in the history of boxing. I truly believe the fighters he's beating and the way he's knocking these people out at bantamweight, 108 pounds, 115, 118 pound fighters aren't supposed to do that. Like Emmanuel Rodriguez blows out in 2 rounds, now a world champion. Jason Maloney, who's a very good fighter, now a world champion, barely won a second of that fight, and now he's a world champion because anyway moved up. So all these guys he's beating in 1, 2, 3 rounds or winning every second of every round are world champion fighters. In his 4th pro fight, he beat a guy who went on to be an eventual unified champion in a non-title fight. I think it was a Japanese or an Asia Pacific title fight, a regional title fight. In his 4th pro fight, he's 21-0 in world title fights, 2-time undisputed champion, the undisputed top dog in 3 weight classes, world champion in 4 weight classes. What this guy is doing is beyond special. Yeah. And thankfully, to the streaming era, ESPN Plus, we all see it. And if you don't see the fact that he's a great fighter, you don't know boxing. Like that's simple as that.
What about illegal streaming? How has illegal streaming affected?
I mean, listen, it's back in the 20 years ago, it was the black boxes, right? The cable boxes. You get some guy to install a couple $200, you get all the pay-per-view channels. So that was the struggle back then. Now, yeah, it obviously impacts the pay-per-view business tremendously. I don't know. I think in some cases, how many buys is that? How many people that would have purchased it are illegally streaming? How many people would not have purchased it but are illegally streaming? That's like a question I don't have the answer to. But yeah, no, it impacts it tremendously, of course.
So it seems that what is Top Rank's business model? Because it seems to me that Top Rank is ran like a well-oiled machine. I did an interview, I want to say with Rick Glazier, and he said that Top Rank runs their company like a Fortune 500.
I think I saw that interview. Yeah.
Yeah, like a Fortune 500. He said they run it like a real business. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously have Bob and Todd at the head of the company, and Carl Moretti's the VP, and we have a legal counsel and 2 Hall of Fame matchmakers and a very robust social media staff, a couple publicists. Like, yeah, so there's and then like any business, accountants and whatnot. I don't know if we're the only. I don't think we're the only company in boxing that's run like that. But yeah, I mean, it's I think a lot of and I didn't realize this till I got in the business. I think a lot of fans don't realize everything that goes into putting on an event, right? The logistics, the travel. When you're putting on an event, you're dealing with 8. We have 9 fights on Friday's card. You're dealing with 18 different fighters and 18 different camps and 18 different travels, and we have we have a 3-4 person operations team that basically works around the clock on a fight week to ensure that everything runs smoothly. Fighters get to where they need to get to on time, do their medicals, a lot of other companies do great jobs at that too, and it's just I'd like to say, I'd like to think we're among the best at what we do, and it really, having worked with these men and women for 6 years, it is a well-oiled machine. So yeah, a lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes that people don't see, and it takes a hell of a lot to put on an event. And also, I'd be remiss to say when you talk about the executive structure, recent Hall of Famer Brad Jacobs, our COO, who I don't know if I've ever met a person who's as good at their job as he is. I mean, everything runs through him, and he's kind of like the point guard, and so yeah, it's just a great team.
Brad, you say Brad Jacobs?
Yeah, Hall of Famer. Yeah, he used to run. He ran USA Tuesday Night Fights for many years. Mastermind behind that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Ran Square, Roy Jones's promotional company for many years. Back in the late '90s, early 2000s, Tarver, the Tarver days, and before that. So he's a boxing lifer and a well-deserving Hall of Famer.
So the people that Top Rank has is more than qualified as it relates to the sport of boxing, how it runs, the operations day to day and stuff like that. When I was talking to Carl Moretti in Vegas, and he said, "Man, we have the best young prospects in the game." He was so excited at the knockout that Abdullah. Bro, let me tell you something. I interviewed Abdullah Mason, man. That was my first time meeting him. He's 19 years old. I've been talking to his father for a while, so me and his father have a good rapport. I love his family, man, and his brothers. Man, that's a good kid. 19 years old, bro. He doesn't even have his man strength yet. And the things that he's able to do in the ring at such a young age, how impressed are you with Abdullah Mason?
Beyond impressed. Everything we thought he's turning into. And I know, obviously, as director of communications for Top Rank, I'm very biased in favor of Top Rank. But when you look at the young fighters, it's Abdullah and Emiliano and Rohan Polanco, Charlie Sheehy, and so many, Xander Zayas, obviously, so many great young, Jared Anderson, so many great young talents, Richard Torres Jr., just even Troy Isley, another former Olympian, Tiger Johnson, another Olympian, Raymond Murtaya is coming up strong. So, I think we have a wealth of young talent, and it remains to be seen how, I think most of these careers are going to pan out. Remains to be seen. Boxing's an unpredictable game, as you know, Coach.
All right, so I listen. I know you're busy. I got one more question.
No,
It seems that all of the top prospects, well, most of them come to Top Rank. What is it about Top Rank that attracts the Floyd Mayweathers, the Oscar De La Hoyas, the Miguel Cottos, the Abdullah Masons, the Shakur Stevensons, the Jared Andersons? Like, what is it about Top Rank that seems to attract all of the top young prospects?
I don't want to speak for any fighters, but I'll speak for why I think so. Track record. You sign with Top Rank, you're gonna, we develop fighters, develop them the right way with matchmaking, the exposure we give them. We keep them busy. Big problem in boxing these days. Fighters don't fight enough, and if you want to stay active, you'll stay active. Best way to develop as a fighter is to fight.
Right.
Fighting once or twice a year at an early age is not going to cut it. So it's activity, it's development, and it's the 360, promotion, marketing, exposure. That machine keeps the wheel rolling, and it just, you don't have to. I don't have to sit here and wax poetic about track record. Floyd, pro debut, became a 4-weight world champion under Top Rank. De La Hoya fought 85% of his career with Top Rank. Kelly Pavlik, a guy that nobody had huge expectations. From what I was told, it wasn't like he was this blue chip guy coming out.
It was.
Nobody, everybody thought Jermaine Taylor was going to run right through him, and became middleweight champion of the world. And one of the biggest stars Youngstown has seen. So Marvin Hagler, nobody wanted. He was.
Oh my God.
Bob told the story about Tip O'Neill and
the Congress,
the whole thing. Yeah. But Hagler lost a couple controversial decisions in Philly and was one loss away from boxing purgatory. And Top Rank, he became arguably the greatest middleweight champion in boxing history. 12 defenses of undisputed titles. So you don't have to tell them; you just show them. Here's, from Hagler to De La Hoya to Pacquiao, to nowadays Shakur. We got Terence Crawford at 9-0, 10-0, 11-0, somewhere in that range. Yeah, so it's track record.
Did you know? From what you heard from the offices, because Terence Crawford was somewhere at Omaha, Nebraska, not known for boxing. To me, it seemed like he was an overachiever. It's no way you could have saw that coming. This guy was going to be as great as he is today.
Maybe knowing Terrence and Bomac and the team maybe they knew, right?
Yeah, they knew. Yeah.
But I don't think anybody could have foreseen. But most of the guys that turn out that way, very few people see it coming, right? Very few people saw Terence Crawford coming, pound for pound #1, future Hall. Manny Pacquiao, nobody could have foreseen that he'd become one of the biggest pay-per-view stars in boxing history and winning 8 world titles. Nobody sees that coming. Maybe Floyd Mayweather, guys like him and Shakur Stevenson, you can see that Floyd Olympic pedigree, his family pedigree. Shakur Stevenson, Olympic silver medalist, was our best amateur. Saying, Shakur Stevenson's going to become a multi-weight world champion, a lot of people were saying that. But guys like Pacquiao, Crawford, Pavlik, if a lot of people were saying it, maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't met many people who did.
Yeah, I heard Pacquiao. I heard Pacquiao was fighting, just to feed his family. It was he had a whole bunch of siblings. And
if you watch this it might have been his HBO debut or early on. He's on a pay-per-view undercard against Leo Luwaba from South Africa, and when he won the 120, Luwaba was heavily favored. And Lampley and Merchant couldn't even pronounce Pacquiao's name. They were calling him Pacquiao. He came in on on a couple weeks' notice, he was seen as cannon fodder for this rising champion, Lidwaba, who was really seen at the time like one of the, he was going to be there for a while. Nobody knew about him. And he went in and kicked the crap out of Lidwaba. Yeah. And then even when he fought Barrera in 2003, and this was before the ride with Top Rank began in earnest, like nobody saw that coming. Barrera was, at the time, I believe, Cliff Rold probably knows this off the top of his head, but I think Barrera was number 3 or 4 on the ring pound for pound list, and Pacquiao did what he did. So a lot of the greatest success stories in boxing, people don't see coming, or if they do, it's 1 or 2 people. So that's like Crawford. How many? Nobody here in America, unless you followed Japanese schoolboy boxing, heard of Naoya Inoue when he turned pro.
No.
So Tyson. How many doubters did Tyson Fury have early on in his career? In America, he was seen as kind of this big, goofy, and he had a tough fight with John McDermott for, I believe, the English title, like 8th or 9th pro fight. Some people thought McDermott deserved that decision. How many people outside of like Tyson Fury, who has most self-belief of probably any person on the planet, thought Tyson Fury was going to become this historic, storied heavyweight champion?
I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe
John
the late
John
great
Fury.
Emmanuel Stewart.
Yeah, it was probably Emmanuel Stewart and John Fury saw it coming. So a lot of the greatest stories in boxing, we don't see coming. And that's what makes boxing so great. One of many reasons. So and then Fury, and then who could have seen that, the comeback from what he, post Klitschko and culminating in the Deontay Wilder trilogy.
All right, Evan, thank you so much, man. Give us some parting words. We have O'Shaquie Foster, one of my favorite fighters, O'Shaquie Foster, Houston's very own blue chip fighter. Where is this fight? Well, this fight I'm seeing is happening in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, the theater at the Garden tomorrow. Not main card.
Friday.
With,
it's Friday, right?
Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern. That's O'Shaquie Foster. Co-main event: Andres Cortez, Brian Chevalier in a big 130-pound matchup, and Jushu Carrington opening the show. And then a few hours before that on ESPN Plus, Guido Vianello, heavyweight prospect from Italy, among many other. Yuri Cedeno, Dominican prospect, who's going to be appearing on a Top Rank show for the first time. He's an Dominican Olympian, so he'll be on the show. So that's at like 5:20 Eastern. So you got about 3.5 hours of undercards, and then you got a triple header on ESPN, and also all fights on ESPN are also simulcast on ESPN Plus as well. So if you have cable,
you say Shushu. You say Shushu is
he's opening
setting it off?
he's opening up the ESPN telecast at 9 o'clock against a Filipino-born, Norwegian-raised veteran, Bernard Torres, who's 18-1.
Okay. All right, man. Great, man. Listen, Evan, thank you so much, brother, for stopping by. Evan Korn, he's the head of PR at Top Rank. I will be reaching out to you because I got to get the matchmakers on. I have to.
We'll talk about it offline, Coach, anytime, man. And it's my pleasure.
Man, I'm out of here, bro. Let's go.